now we've got, I would think that the most important aspect of this football team right now is finding a new offensive coordinator. Dan, you know, he went into the game basically knowing that he was coaching his last game, and it was certainly not a stellar effort on his part in particular.
Well, if you believe, it depends on who you believe. Obviously, Tim Reynolds from the Associated Press is a journalist beyond reproach. If he's going to put out a report like that, he's not going to just do it by happenstance. He's not a social media gangster. He's not out there just looking for clout. You know, he's doing his job. Manny Diaz, however, on a radio interview today said that the decision to fire Dan Enos was not made before the game, but after the game. And he doesn't know how that report came out. I don't know who you want to believe. I'm not going to say that Tim Reynolds made anything up. I believe that he actually had it right. I believe that Manny Diaz just went out there to try to talk a good game and save face today. But yeah, you know, again, it was one of those things. There's too much smoke for there not to be fire. You know, if you have a professional journalist who is going to have at least 3 unlinked sources confirm something to the point where they're going to report it, it came from somewhere, buddy. You know what I mean? And I get Manny, might want to say, "Oh, I didn't know that I told this one person who then was going to whatever." But to sit here and say, ask directly, after the game about it. He said, "Oh, there'll be a time and a place that we talk about Dan Enos." And then less than 12 hours later, he's fired. But you didn't make that decision until after we got shut out against Louisiana Tech, after what you'd seen in these last, whole season and everything. Like, I was born at night, but not last night. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't lose that game getting shut out with only, excuse me, because I still have the stats open because you know how I like to do it. 227 yards of total offense. You didn't see that. Get on the plane, fly back, and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm thinking now all of a sudden, no, sorry, miss me with that." So in any event, the offense looked putrid. Again, Dan Enos has been let go, shown the door, and just, we've parted ways, which I think was the right move. I've been saying for years, Miami needs to go pace and space. I don't care. There's so many different versions of it. People hear spread and they think air raid Washington State, Texas Tech. Even if you look at Texas Tech, though, Texas Tech runs for lots of yards because the Big 12 runs for yards. There's so many versions of spread that you can run. Look at LSU. You know what I mean? And no, we're not necessarily going to have that offense. I would love that offense, but we need to put our guys in space. We need to stop running stuff to the short side of the field. We need to stop rolling our right-handed quarterbacks to the left. And again, I get that can be a tendency breaker, but that cannot be the foundation of the offense. There's so few guys who can do that, who can run to their opposite hand, flip their, opposite side, flip their hips, get their, arm through and make a good, accurate, on-time pass. Especially when you're running flood and everything, because you're not going to only throw a 5-yard pass. You're going to throw a 10-yard out, a 12-yard out. That's a long throw. If you're looking at the diagonal of the hypotenuse, because you go up and over, that's what that is. That's a long throw going to the wrong side. Why is that the foundation of our offense? Why are we doing these long developing play action passes that take forever when you don't have the offensive line for it? And the run game disappeared this year. The run game was like 60% worse in terms of yardage and production this year than last. What are you talking about? It was obvious that Dan Enos needed to go. And Manny Diaz made that move, which is different than Mark Richt, who obviously needed a new offensive coordinator, refused to do it for the reasons that I previously detailed. Go look up those videos. Same like Al Golden refused to get rid of his friend Mark D'Onofrio. I don't know what their bond was where he said, "Look, I'm willing to go down with the ship and get fired for you." But at least Manny Diaz is taking that one step. But again, 2 weeks ago, I wrote the Embattled Coaches Playbook, and this is one of those early plays where you say, look, you've already used up the first step, that video from Traffic talking about the 2 letters. I embedded that, the first one, you blame the old guy. The second time, write 2 letters because there's going to be a new guy taking your job. You've already blamed the old guy. You've already said, okay, the culture stuff, what happened here before, I'm getting rid of all that. So you're explicitly placing it on Mark Richt and what happened previously. You've already missed once. You're probably not going to get a chance to miss twice. So whoever you bring in, you better hit it. And today on the radio, Manny Diaz want to talk about, we're going to do things cutting edge and spread, pace and space, and da-da-da-da. You can say everything that you want to say. Show me. I'm not buying what you're saying. I'm not buying what you're selling anymore. Get somebody in here. Let's see the update. And that needs to happen. And if the update to end performance doesn't happen with the offense, then Manny Diaz is going to be out of here after the end of next year, period.
So what I don't understand about all that is everything you ran down about what has become bullet points to Dan Enos's offense are tenets that you, as a knowledgeable football observer, myself, can quickly identify that don't make sense to do when you have speed advantage, when you have quarterbacks who are inexperienced and if not proven to be able to do certain things, then you don't do them. All the things that you just ran down. You don't have to be a scout. You don't have to be a coach. All those things to understand that those aren't going to work, or you need to build a foundation until you have players that prove, especially at the quarterback position, that they can take that extra step and do some things to break tendencies. That's what I don't understand. If Dan Enos was here talking football with us, he knows so much more about offensive football than either one of us. How do you go and then continue to
Right. Exactly. Like, I mean, it's insanity. It's trying to do the same thing, expect the outcome to change. Like, I get that you have to have a foundation, you have to have a system, you have to have a paradigm that you're going to work with. But if the result is not proper, that means the process is flawed. Period. That's just what it is. In your industry, my industry, well, industries, because I changed my job from teaching to what I'm doing now. I thought I was going to tell you, but anybody listening, there's a process. But if it's not reaping the benefit or the outcome that you desire, then the process has to change. And this transition has to be part and parcel of that. Dan Enos obviously was one that was not going. He was going to run his system, what he wanted to run, what had worked, and it had worked previously. I expected one of those, seasons with statistics like his first or second season at Arkansas, which were pretty good. That was not what we got. We got from even a bad offense last year in 2018. Miami regressed in 2019. And yeah, and he stuck to his guns and wanted to run what he was going to run, and that's perfectly fine. We'll go run it somewhere else. But yeah, Miami needs to find a person. I saw somebody ask who I think that is going to be the next offensive coordinator. I honestly don't know. I haven't even looked into. I know, I would like Sean Gleason from Oklahoma State because I thought that he would have been a good fit coming in last year from Princeton. Instead of trying to go chase somebody who's hot. Get the young rising guy who's demonstrated it. No, it wasn't at Alabama, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas. It wasn't at that kind of a place, but it was at a place at Princeton with a talent deficit, where he's doing more with less. You can put that here, ascribe that scheme to the talent that Miami has on the roster. Now you can do more with more, as opposed to Miami, who's done less with more than any team in the country over the last 15 years. Could it be a Rhett Lashley? I would like that. Could it be a Kevin Johns from Memphis? I would enjoy that. Could it be David Yost? Could it be, Willie Fritz probably wants to stay a head coach, but I would take Willie Fritz. There are options out there. There are names out there. Manny Diaz said that he's talked to about 7 or 8 guys from the college and NFL levels. So maybe an assistant a la Joe Brady when he was an assistant with the Saints, and now he's at LSU, obviously lighting the world on fire, the Broyles Award winner for National Assistant Coach of the Year. That's where I would like to go. If you can get a great offensive mind who has demonstrated it at this level already, awesome. Major Applewhite is a name that was thrown out there previously before Dan Enos was hired. Somebody of that ilk who you can look at and say, as an offensive coordinator, they did this. As a head coach, yeah, Major Applewhite don't got the juice. But as an offensive coordinator, he does. That would be great. Or you could be ahead of the curve, get a young guy, hungry, knows his stuff, going to come in and and do what Miami used to do and be on the cutting edge of hiring these guys. Look at, all the guys who used to coach at Miami, who are now head coaches, coordinators. Coach Orgeron, he was a defensive line coach down here with Warren Sapp. Look at Randy Shannon, who was here. Look at Greg Schiano, who was here. Look at both of the Stoops brothers, who were here as assistants. Look at Chuck Pagano, who coached in the NFL, who was here at the time. Look at Randy Rob Chudzinski, who was here. Look at all these guys who used to be assistants who then stepped up. Miami has not had anything like that. So even if you are not familiar with the name right now, there should be, and there are guys who are going to be rising stars in this industry. Miami could find one of those. I don't know if Manny Diaz has the discerning eye for coaching talent to find them, and I don't know which way he wants to go. But it would be interesting to see. But either way, or any way that things go, you got to go more of a spread offense, and you have to update the performance and the production on offense, regardless of who's calling plays.
When I think of this style of offense, I go back, let's say 20 to 25 years. That's about where I think it originated at some point, having to do with the concept of the tempo, the spacing of the players, the spread formation. So there's a few basic concepts, and then there are all sorts of iterations of it. So 20 or 25 years ago, when you're talking Mouse Davis and people like that, there were a select few who knew how to run it, and it was in little pockets in the nation, and usually in situations like you just pointed out, where programs were understaffed from a talent perspective and were looking to gain advantages for guys that could just pitch and catch, weren't necessarily the fastest or the quickest or the 5-star guys, but they could pitch and catch, and they were really good at that. But
that was because they couldn't go 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They didn't have the size. When everybody was doing that, when Ohio State and Michigan were, just everybody's in the box, everybody's tight in there, and we're going to out physical you because we're bigger and stronger than you. Those teams who didn't have that kind of size and strength said, look, we got to do something else because we're David always going against Goliath. We're not going to do that. We can do that, but lose. But we have to try to find an inefficiency to figure out a way to take advantage of something that we have. And the thing that we have is 100 yards by 53 1/3 of space. So they can go vertical, we can go horizontal, we can find all that, but we don't have to live in this box.
And in addition to that, they didn't necessarily have the athletes to. So passing games years and years ago were more about extending the field. There was not dumping off. There weren't bubble screens. It was about getting your best players out there, and you're throwing long outs and seam routes and crossing patterns from 18 yards. And if you watch football in the 70s and 80s, the passing game was downfield. And of course, the West Coast offense changed that to a certain extent, and all this stuff morphs together, different people taking different concepts. But it had to do also with just not having the superior arm talent and speed downfield, and saying, we've got some quick guys, and we found this 2-star quarterback who's really good at just pitch and catch and being accurate inside like 8 yards. So my point was going to be, where these guys were exclusive 20 years ago, they're not. This is being run 75 to 80% of the country. So you should be able to find somebody who's really good at running it, because again, these coaches share from each other. They're going to coaching clinics and camps and visiting each other's teams constantly. So the sharing of the information, this is not nearly as exclusive as it was even 5 years ago, that you would think you'd be able to find a bright mind that could run this offense.
One would think, and it is not exclusive, except for in Coral Gables for the Miami Hurricanes.